Let's explore the macabre story of Judges chapter 19, a biblical narrative that will certainly leave you shocked and speechless. This story is one of the most disturbing and darkest in Scripture, and as we reflect on it, we will be challenged to understand the depths of human depravity and the urgent need for divine intervention. The passage is filled with violence, betrayal, and tragedy, highlighting the importance of justice and compassion in a world corrupted by sin. The story begins with a Levite, a man from the tribe of Levi, who lived in the hill country of Ephraim. He had a concubine from Bethlehem in the tribe of Judah. A concubine in ancient culture was a woman who lived with a man, but had a lower status than a wife. This concubine, for reasons not entirely clear, left the Levite and returned to her father's house in Bethlehem. After 4 months, the Levite decided to go after her to persuade her to return. When he arrived at the concubine's father's house, he was received with hospitality and stayed there for several days, enjoying the generosity of his father-in-law. After a few days of the father insisting they stay a bit longer, the Levite finally decided to leave with his concubine and a servant, despite the father trying to convince them to stay one more night. The journey back was long and tiring. By evening, they arrived near the city of Jebus, which would later be known as Jerusalem. The servant suggested they spend the night there, but the Levite refused, preferring not to stay in a city where the inhabitants were not Israelites. Instead, he decided to continue until they reached Gibeah, a city in the tribe of Benjamin. When they arrived in Gibeah, they looked for a place to spend the night, but no one offered them hospitality. They sat in the town square until an old man who was also from Ephraim saw them and offered them shelter in his house. He insisted they not spend the night in the square and took them to his house, where he fed and cared for them. While they were enjoying the hospitality of the old man, wicked men of the city surrounded the house and beat on the door. They demanded the old man hand over the Levite so they could abuse him. In response, the old man tried to protect his guest and offered his own virgin daughter and the Levite's concubine to the men of the city. This shocking proposal reveals the extreme depravity and devaluation of human life that existed at that time. The men refused the offer, so the Levite pushed his concubine outside. The crowd raped and abused her all night long. At dawn, she was found collapsed at the door of the old man's house. The concubine tried to return inside but died at the entrance of the house. When the Levite went out in the morning, he found his concubine dead at the door. He put her on his donkey and took her home. Upon arriving there, he cut her body into 12 pieces and sent a piece to each of the tribes of Israel. This horrific act was a call to action, a cry for help for all the tribes to rise against the evil committed in Gibeah. The Levites' shocking act united the tribes of Israel, who gathered at Mizpah to discuss what had happened. They were horrified by the Levites' account and decided to take drastic measures. The tribe sent messengers to the Benjamites, demanding they hand over the men responsible for the atrocity so they could be punished. However, the Benjamites refused to surrender the guilty men. This refusal led to a civil war between the tribes of Israel and the tribe of Benjamin. The Israelites swore not to rest until justice was served. They gathered an army of 400,000 men, while the Benjamites managed to muster 26,000 warriors, including 700 left-handed men who were extremely skilled with the sling. The battles were fierce and bloody. On the first 2 days of fighting, the Benjamites managed to repel the attacks of the other tribes, causing significant casualties among the Israelites. However, on the third day, the Israelites used a different strategy. They pretended to retreat, drawing the Benjamites out of the city. When the Benjamites came out to pursue the Israelites, an ambush was set, and Gibeah was set on fire. Seeing the smoke rising from the city, the Benjamites realized they had fallen into a trap. The Israelites attacked with renewed strength, defeating the Benjamites. Of the 26,000 Benjamite warriors, only 600 managed to escape and took refuge at the Rock of Rimmon. The other tribes were so enraged by the events that they ravaged the Benjamite cities, killing men, women, and children, and destroying everything. After the battle, there was a moment of regret and sorrow among the Israelites as they realized that a tribe of Israel had almost been exterminated. To prevent the extinction of the tribe of Benjamin, the Israelites sought a way to provide wives for the 600 survivors. Since they had sworn not to give their own daughters to the Benjamites, they faced a moral and practical dilemma. Their solution was found in the city of Jabesh Gilead, which had not participated in the assembly at Mizpah. The Israelites decided to attack Jabesh Gilead, killing all the men and non-virgin women, and taking 400 young virgins to be given as wives to the surviving Benjamites. However, this brutal solution still left a shortfall of 200 wives. To address this, the Israelites allowed the Benjamites to abduct 200 young women from Shiloh during a religious festival. This act of sanctioned abduction was seen as a necessary evil to ensure the continuity of the Benjamite lineage. With these arrangements, the tribe of Benjamin was gradually rebuilt, and a fragile peace was restored. The story of Judges chapter 19 is one of the darkest and most disturbing accounts in the Bible. It reveals the depth of human depravity and the consequences of the absence of spiritual leadership in Israel at that time. The repeated phrase throughout the book of Judges, "In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes," encapsulates the anarchy and moral decay of that period. This chaotic backdrop sets the stage for the heinous acts described in the narrative, illustrating how a lack of righteous leadership can lead to societal collapse. This story challenges us to reflect on the importance of justice, righteous leadership, and the need to follow God's ways. Without divine guidance, society can quickly descend into violence and chaos. The narrative highlights the need for compassion, empathy, and decisive action against injustice. The actions of the Israelites, though extreme, were driven by a desperate need to rectify a grave wrong and restore order. As we reflect on Judges chapter 19, we are reminded of the importance of protecting the vulnerable and seeking justice in our communities. The plight of the concubine who was brutally victimized underscores the necessity of safeguarding those who are at risk of exploitation and abuse. May we learn from the mistakes of the past and work to create a world where human dignity is respected and justice prevails. The story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of moral relativism and the imperative of adhering to ethical principles. This story can be compared to current times in several ways. In many places around the world, we still witness violence, injustice, and the devaluation of human life. The lack of righteous leadership and the absence of solid moral principles lead society to situations of chaos and depravity. The call to action and unity against injustice, present in the narrative, is something that strongly resonates in our days. We need compassion and empathy to build a more just and humane society. Just as the tribes of Israel united to combat the evil in Gibeah, we too must unite to face the injustices in our world. The story of Judges chapter 19 reminds us that, in the face of evil, collective action is crucial to uphold justice and righteousness. By examining this dark and disturbing narrative, we are called to reflect on our own world and our own actions. We are reminded that even in the depths of human depravity, there is always hope for redemption and the possibility of a better future if we commit to justice, compassion, and righteousness. The story underscores the need for vigilance in maintaining moral integrity and the courage to confront wrongdoing. Let us strive to create a world where such horrors are not repeated and where every individual is valued and protected. This ancient narrative, while deeply troubling, offers timeless lessons about the human condition and the enduring need for ethical leadership and communal responsibility. It is a poignant reminder that our actions today shape the moral fabric of our society and the legacy we leave for future generations.